But Mike and I had a very good relationship. I competed against him as a player, covered him obviously as a coach. And one of my favorite couple of moments were dealing with him in the capacity of a game week. And the reason I loved it is it was totally unlike any other interactions with coaches during game weeks. Mike was completely unafraid to be himself. And in so many ways, it was so refreshing for someone in my position. I have a couple of stories, ones that stick out that I've, never really told or had the opportunity to tell. But the first time that I was ever going to get a chance to cover Mike and call one of his games at Texas Tech, I was obviously very excited. Try to get a peek behind the curtain of this man and this program that was so unique in college football. He was at Texas Tech at the time. And, one of the big moments during the week of any game week for the broadcast crew is the production call and the meeting with the coaches. This particular week, we were having Texas Tech on the road. And so in that case, you do a conference call. This is obviously before Zoom. So you were going to do a conference call with the coach from the opposing team. And the conference call was on Wednesday. And, I think it was like 11 a.m. or 10 a.m. And normally coaches get on. They don't say very much. They're awkward conversations. And Mike gets on and he was chipper and it was kind of noisy in the background. I'm thinking to myself, like, what's happening? Is he in a golf cart on campus or something? And then I realized, like, no, he's driving. And I start to think to myself, wait, hold on. The head coach is driving around at 10 a.m. in the morning. It was 10 Mountain Time, 11 Central Time. I'm like, is he going to lunch? I don't quite understand. And so I asked him, I was like, where are you headed? And he was like, oh, I'm headed into the office. I was like, wait. And I was like, well, how early do you get to the office? And he said, like, oh, my staff meetings, are a little bit later. And I just thought to myself, man, how unique is this guy? And then all of a sudden, as I'm asking him questions, he starts to get a little distracted during the course of the interview. And, I was just like, hey, you okay? Do I need to call you back? And he's like, no. Just hold on for a second. And I thought, okay. And he proceeds to then, you can tell, kind of lean out his window and say, yeah, I'll have a large coffee, please. And no room for cream and no sugar, please. Just black. And I'll always remember, and I'll never experience that again, having a coach's production meeting when the head coach was driving through the Starbucks drive-through to get himself a coffee. Made me love Mike Leach, made me love him because he was totally unafraid to do things his way. The next conversation I would share with you, and this is when he was at Washington State, we went up there and I was going to do an Apple Cup between Washington State and Washington. And this particular year, Washington State was doing pretty well, and they had a couple of running backs that were actually running for more yards than what Mike Leach's running backs normally run for. And so I started asking him about, like, oh, is this some sort of evolution of your system? And is this something that we can expect in the future where we're going to run for more yards? And he looked at me and he was like, Joel, you know me better than that. He was like, I don't call run plays. And I was like, wait, you what? And he says, I don't call run plays. He said, every time we hand the ball off, that's the quarterback checking to a run. And I stopped and I was like, hold on a second. You mean to tell me you do not call run plays? And he said, absolutely not. And I just, again, it was the level of belief in what he was doing offensively and the willingness to totally be different. And I was like, so do you care about balance at all? And he started howling, balance. He said, you want me to achieve balance? I can just call 50% run plays. Then I can come in and I'll show you the stat sheet and I'll say, like, look at that. We were balanced. Good. How did I do? He's like, I can call for balance or I can call for production. One of the two. What do you want? And we howled and howled together, and we were laughing and having a great time about balance and about calling run plays. And then he got on the board and he was starting to show me what they specifically would check from and get into in order to run the football. But we had a great time. And I failed to mention this at the beginning of the story. Bill Stevens, who was the SID at Washington State, he said at the time, Coach only has 15 minutes. Like, that's it. That's all we got today, because it was busy. It was Thanksgiving week. And I thought, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'll take as much time as you're willing to give. We sat there for 45 minutes talking football. A couple of times I said, Coach, do you need to go? And he says, no, I love this. I'll always remember that. Lastly, I would just say, and I've said it a couple times already, Mike was himself unapologetically. And one of the things that he gave the sport and all the coaches that coached under him was this superpower of the question, why not? So if you talk with some of the guys that cut their teeth under Mike Leach, they'll share with you some like wild stories, about the way that they would game plan or build things, and they were different from what was the norm in our sport. So often coaches do things only because they don't want to stand out from the crowd. They don't want to be criticized. And so they do things and they build things, whether it's practice schedules or the way that their offense is called or what they'll try during a game or the way their practice is built. And they just don't want to be an outlier, because that can invite criticism. And so guys, generally speaking, will try to stay in the lane, be different slightly here and there, but there's a real unwillingness from coaching circles to be different and unapologetically different. And Lincoln Riley shared with me a story about the great Texas Tech team in 2008. Graham Harrell as their quarterback and Michael Crabtree as their wide receiver. And this is a team that I believe finished 11-1. Their only loss was at Oklahoma, three-way tie for that Big 12 South with Texas and Oklahoma. And one middle of the season, one practice, Mike decides that they haven't been throwing the go ball, the 9 route, very well. And so he decides that in that practice, that's all they're going to do. So in every single route on air, 1-on-1, 7-on-7 play, team play, that's the only play that they're going to run. That's the only route that they're going to run, regardless of coverage. And they had adjustments off of the route. You could drop it out and you can do all of these things based on the coverage. And so they were just going to run go routes against whatever defense was out there. And the quarterbacks obviously are going to throw go routes all day, but the wide receivers are going to run go routes all day long. Again, this is the middle of the season, and they have, at the time, a Biletnikoff Award winner in Michael Crabtree. Well, these wide receivers end up running go routes all day to the tune of probably, Lincoln said, 3-4 miles of go routes. That's all they're doing. And some of the other coaches started getting worried about like the number of go routes that they were running and the freshness of the wide receivers and their legs. And some of them said to Mike, we can't do this. And Mike said, why not? Why not? And then he said to them, at some point this season, we're going to end up having to throw a go route against a coverage that we don't want to, and it has to be successful. Do you know what route was called on that iconic play against Texas where Michael Crabtree catches it on the sideline and runs in for a touchdown? That was all go. That was 4 verticals. It was go routes. And it didn't matter what coverage Texas was going to run. Graham Harrell and Michael Crabtree knew because of days like the only go route day in practice that they could complete it, that they could execute it. And then they did in the face of double coverage. Texas is trying to double cover Michael Crabtree, and they couldn't because Tech was outside of the box. And it was because of Mike Leach and his willingness and his fortitude to just say, why not?
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.